Welcome to CurveBall DFI-ed, currently not sponsored by anyone. I'm your host, David Ayofi, and on our third podcast, we have the pleasure of having Derek Leckner. He's a startup founder that graduated from Rutgers in 2018, attended a bootcamp in 2020, and is now currently getting his master's in data science at NJIT. He is trying to solve efficiency issues through RH analytics, and in today's podcast, we will learn how he got the courage to quit his day job and work on his passion. Welcome, Derek. So the first question that we do have for you to start things off, could you please talk a little bit about your background and how you ultimately came up with the idea of RH analytics?
Sure. So I think someone else on your podcast was also very similar. Originally, I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to go to law school for a couple of years. And then I actually, after graduating Rutgers, let me take it back. So I went to Rutgers. I got a major in economics and environmental policy. The reason why I majored in those was because, well, if you want to go to law school, it doesn't really matter what you major in. So I was like, all right, cool, let's major in stuff that looked kind of fun. So I did that. And I went to Germany for a year after graduating college, because a lot of people, what they do before going to college, before going to law school, is they take that gap year, right? So I said, screw it, I'll take a gap year in a different country. And while I was there, I had an idea for a website. And I just really got into the coding aspect of things. I tried to build a website. I actually gathered a small little team of some friends to build it out and help me build it out. But I realized my tech skills were very low. So fast forward to the end of my year in Germany, I got a job at a Israeli tech startup. They laid me off after 5 months. And by that time, also, I just didn't have the wherewithal to continue working on the site I was trying to build, because it was my motivation was dead. A year and a half outside of college, you get laid off after 5 months at your job. And I didn't really have any technical skills, because at first I wanted to go to law school, and I was like, screw it, I'll work in tech. So I said to myself, okay, never again am I just not have any technical skills. So I got a job in a sales gig, calling, some of the worst stuff you can do. And I took a boot camp, as I mentioned. And I said, after I graduated the boot camp, me and my childhood friend, we'd start kind of a consulting company together. And yeah, we did that. So it's a little bit of my background. Sorry if I rambled.
No, it's perfectly fine. Sales, I think, is one of the most important skills to have, because in order to be successful and to succeed, you have to know how to sell yourself. What do you think the hardest adjustment you had going from this whole technical side to now you're in the sales and working on it?
So, I mean, I'm in the sales part and the technical side, right? I've never really left the two. I say kind of the hardest part is using a different brain. Because when you're in a technical side, it's very, okay, here's just the logical reasoning and everything. But when you're in sales, you're triggering more of the emotional side. You're trying to connect with people on a more down to earth type of level, right? Hey, I hear you, I get you, let's figure this out together type of thing. Let's see if, there's any value I can provide you. So changing between both brains, from talking to a client and then actually working on his stuff and translating it, could actually be just an extra little step that you have to think about. Because for a guy that's not technical, if you're starting to do a whole bunch of technical jargon, it's what are you talking about? Why am I paying you for? What is this? You need to bridge the gaps there between the technical language and the sales emotional language in a clever way.
That makes sense. So you're talking a little bit about the skills that you get from the sales. You're talking about what you learned from the technical. How do you implement that all into RH analytics?
The sales aspect of things, or
no? How do you the skills that you got in both sides?
So I think a lot of it is, when it comes to the sales portion, is a lot of it's just thinking about opportunity. Okay, first of all, know what you're doing, know what you can do, right? Know what skills, know. So we work with data a lot, anything data we can work with. So knowing if someone comes across to you a situation yeah, no, I'm working on this project right here, and you say, okay, cool, this is how we can help, and then of course going from knowing what you're doing and then translating into that sales aspect. and essentially like delivering that message. So my current client, I didn't even mean to pick him up. We were just talking, and he said, "Yeah, no, I'm working on this project." Oh, tell me more about that project. And tell me, and all of a sudden I'm in sales mode. Okay, I'm leaving my technical brain. I'm in sales mode. I was like, "Oh, how can I help this guy?" And then I take my technical jargon, like again, translate it in my own head and spit it back out.
It's very important that you're able to, first of all, get the client engaged and be able to relate to a person, because when you start talking to somebody, you don't want to always start off in a business aspect. If you come off in that way, then you may rub the wrong shoulder, because you may come off a little bit more interesting and more genuine if you don't necessarily start talking about business right away.
Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of the jargon, networking, making connections, opportunity. I just hate that business jargon personally.
Networking is the most important thing. And I think that even though it is one of those things that to some people it could be tedious, being in New York City is one of the benefits that you do have, because there are so many people. And I'm sure that you could relate to that. So can you explain a little bit about how being from like such a big city has benefited your business?
So actually one of my clients right now, like a lot of his business is done in New York City. So I think the fact that again, working with data, everything requires data. All right, like everything, from maybe you're going to evaluate like the people listening in and maybe the age group dynamics, demographics, and trying to figure out, okay, what's like the tune-in rate, all the stuff. So anything's already done with data. If you're, I guess, operating in a big metropolitan like New York City, where everyone's doing business with everybody, you're just going to need that data. So if you're in that major frequency of, okay, here's a guy, one of my clients who's doing a lot of business in New York City, he's going to have a lot of clients, right? Because you're only in New York City if you're going to be doing business with like almost everybody. And so that brings in a lot of opportunity for him to have a lot of data to process or business questions that can be answered. The other thing I'd like to note actually is due to like the world we live in right now, when it comes to everyone being remote, I kind of want to say that even if you don't live in a metropolitan area, if you don't live in New York City, if you don't even live in Silicon Valley, the opportunity for you to even do business with people, and I think you've said it yourself, right? You're starting to talk to people all over the world. I think it's been much more common with all this remote working. So for anyone not living in New York City or not living in a big metropolitan, I want to say, like, hey, it's fine. You can still like get your name out there as long as you have a little fingerprint on the internet. You're going to be okay.
I think the most important thing is to realize what value you bring to the table. And as soon as you understand that, it doesn't matter where you are. So for me, I'm very fortunate that I do live in New York City, because I do have access to investors and certain people that somebody that's in Africa or in Egypt may not have. So I'm able to have that leg up. But you spoke about how you get to know the clients and how you guys make that the whole connection. Can you talk a little bit more about what it's like finding your first customers for your service?
Of course, everyone's stories is going to be a little different. If you want to hear the story about how we found our first customer. So I was actually living in Brooklyn at the time. It was actually during the height of the pandemic. And my roommate, she worked with this guy, managed like a lot of admin stuff for a whole bunch of businesses he owned. And she was telling me one time, she's like, yeah, no, my boss, he's trying to get this business plan together and a 3-year projection of how his company will go and how his startup company will go. And he tried to find some guy on Fiverr, and it just hasn't been working out. And I go, wait, bring it back. What's happening again? I said, he wants to make a business plan and a 3-year projection of his company. I'm like, it could. My friend and I, we're looking for like a new client for our business. We might be able to start. She's like, oh, I don't know. Like, let's see how it works out with this Fiverr guy. It's like a couple of days later, and she's my roommate. I don't want to annoy the crap out of her. I asked again how it's going, and she says, yeah, I'm still working with the Fiverr guy, but it's being very difficult. By the time like the 3rd week came around, I was like, so what's the deal? Still nothing. And I'm like, just set him up with an intro call with me. We'll figure it out. Then I'll talk to my partner, and maybe I can give him a good timeline, break this low gridlock. We can get him his business plan. We can get him his projection in like 2 weeks. And sure enough, she's like, all right, fine. And if you want to translate that to a sales thing, it's like, okay, this guy really wanted to get something done. He's been dealing with someone that hasn't been able to get it done. So his pain is really high and his frustration is even higher. So all of a sudden I'll come along, someone that he knows, well, he knows her and my roommate, and then she knows me. So that's like a little better than some random guy in Fiverr. So that's kind of like a better in. So I guess if you're going to denote that story to a bottom line, it's like try to find someone that you know through someone else. Because again, everyone's always doing business with somebody, right?
That puts a huge star right next to that whole networking thing. You get this whole networking. That's how you get your first clients. The most important investors that you first go to are friends and family around, and those people are always there for you. And then you slowly start to pick up from there.
Yep.
You spoke about how your competition levels compared to Fiverr. But I wanted to know what other things make RH Analytics different than the current competition?
So when you really boil it down, when you're offering like consulting services, there's going to be just so many people out there. There's so many also. I think also, again, due to COVID, a lot of people also quit their jobs to do their own little thing. What makes us different is at the end of the day, you kind of have to just believe in your brand. Me and my partner, I think we just overall have a very good dynamic in our ability to work together. I like to think I try to be like a visionary type of person. So if you come to me with an idea, I can be like, okay, maybe this is how we can make it better. And I'm still trying to figure it out, because at first, we were like, hey, let's just get one client and see how it is. Now we're on like a third client, hoping to get more in the future. But I think to answer some of that question is going to take more time. Maybe just a lot of introspecting, understanding about how we work and how we do well, and just branching out. But I definitely think that it's okay to say at the end of the day, it's like, hey, I'm me, I do what I can do, and I have the good interests of the client at heart, whoever they may be, or friend, or whatever the case is.
Fair. You spoke about how you kind of keep growing and hopefully trying to get more clients. What character traits do you think you have that you are able to utilize making these new connections?
I think just seeing when you can kind of like slide in there. I guess just being always on your toes. Even if you're like, I don't know, out to lunch or something, and you overhear something that sounds interesting, and finding out, okay, how can I get in on that conversation? How can I be like, hey, I overheard you talking about this. Tell me more about it. And then maybe go something like, oh, the reason why I asked is because we do something like this. Automatically there, you're kind of like pitching yourself. So I think a lot of it's just being on your toes, being a little outgoing. Or not. You don't always have to be the most outgoing person, because again, you could just, as you bring it back to what you said, you can just have that networking group, right? Those group of friends, then they all know something. If you're good at what you do, they'll think of you whenever a problem comes up.
I think that also one thing that has been able to be like a large factor of like networking is the power of LinkedIn, and especially if you go to a huge university. Like you went to Rutgers, I'm sure you know about the minute you make a LinkedIn, that's already like 1,000 connections right there. So you're kind of able to find like this whole community aspect, and everybody sees what's going on and kind of grow from there. Can you touch a little bit about like how going to Rutgers, how that affected your career?
So think about that's a good question. Rutgers, so again, for a lot of wanting to go to school was, a lot of what, during my time at Rutgers, I was thinking, okay, let's go to law school. It wasn't until when I was in Germany that I kind of said to myself, why do I want to go to law school again? I don't really like it. I'm already going to be a year out of college. Most of my friends are going to be, making money. I'm going to be like $30,000 or $40,000 in debt. I think if anything, Rutgers helped me, and I didn't realize this until I applied for my first sales position. I was actually philanthropy chair of my fraternity, and part of that was, we had to go do I came up with an idea, a philanthropy event. We were a relatively new chapter. And I said, great, let's do it. Let's get this done. And I said, okay, in order to get this done, we need to do A, B, and C, right? We need to get sponsors. So Rutgers, being a large area, as you say, has a lot of restaurants around. So what me and my friends did, we actually went door to door with flyers saying, "Hey, do you want to be a sponsor? You want to be a sponsor?" And we also kind of set aside some money too to like try out some of the local goods. So if anyone's ever in New Brunswick, they want to reach out, like, hey, what's some good stuff out there? Because we essentially went up and down what's called Easton Ave. That's like where all the big college like restaurants are. We just went door to door, hey, talk about Rockathon. So that exposure, I didn't really realize until a little bit after I applied for my first sales job. I was like, well, that was sales, getting yourself out there and making that connection. And then, again, as you said, sales really transfers forever.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like you had a great time. And touching upon the fraternity, I know you were part of AE Pi. Definitely Jewish core, definitely a Jewish core. And going to be a lawyer is definitely something that a Jewish mother is for sure thrilled of. So how did that affect your parents when you're like, okay, I'm going to law school to I'm going to be a founder? How was that whole transition like?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't really think, like, I thought of that. I didn't really think, I know I went from law school to getting a regular job to quitting my job, doing my own thing. But now you put it, it's like, yeah, I want to go to law school too. I'm going to quit my job and never work for anyone else again. Yeah, that's bigger. All right, so first of all, the law school thing, I think my parents were shocked. I did take the LSAT one time. They know I didn't really do that well because I guess I started studying too late for the LSATs. And I had to go to Germany, right? My program was going to start as soon as graduation was over. So I had to like rush to get it in. And I'm a bad standardized test taker. So I was doing really well in my test score, in my practice test. Then when I took the final test, the actual test was the same score as my diagnostic test. Which if you know anything about studying for standardized tests, that's not supposed to happen. So I think right there, they're like, all right, well, maybe he'll try again. But I think it gave me a little bit of an out to say, yeah, law school's not for me. I can't do the standardized test anymore. I like to think that maybe they thought I had a little bit of a creative mind, or what I think is a creative mind. So they're a little more open to it, leaving law school and just taking like a regular job in tech. The real kicker, when it came to telling them, it's like, yeah, I'm going to quit my job, and do my own thing. My dad did kind of like have like a brief little freak out, but then he caught himself and was like, Derek, you're somehow here. I support you and anything you want to do. So a lot of credit to my parents for being, they're really concerned about healthcare, right? Because I'm turning 26 in May, in which case I can't be on my parents' healthcare. So that's really the only thing they're concerned about, if I can take care of myself. Other than that, they have faith in me. The healthcare is expensive.
I was listening to a podcast the other day with the founder of Network. I'm pretty sure it was him. And he had like this, no, it wasn't the founder of Network. It was on the Jordan Harbinger show. I forgot which podcast it was. But basically the line was, he was like, the only difference between an entrepreneur. Oh, it was with the founder of LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure. He's like, the only like when you tell somebody that you're an entrepreneur to somebody else, that may sound like you're just like, I'm unemployed. So this is kind of like, it's like that's the entrepreneur mindset. Like, no, I'm not unemployed, and I'm an entrepreneur. So that's kind of like funny because like I know myself, like I always, because currently right now I'm still in school. I'm so tempted. I'm like, I don't need school anymore. Like, why don't I just pursue this all the way? And then I'm always like, wait, like school, really, I could manage everything right now. And I think that in every single situation, you learn things. So right now, I'm currently learning how to manage my time to such a degree where I'm able to work and do things that I'm passionate about, and also on the side, go to school. So I think that that's like the most important thing, how you're able to learn. And you also touched on...
Oh, sorry. It was a question there. But I didn't want to touch point. I'm saying, just, shout out to everyone, like, what, you're 20 again, right? You're 20, right?
Yeah.
That's honestly amazing. If you want to get started doing whatever your passion is, I wish I can go back in time to back when I was 20 to do that. I had a Python book. Now I code a lot in Python. I had a Python book in high school, my senior year. I tried to do a for loop. If anyone knows, it's a simple, like, going through just a list of stuff, if you will, like printing it out or doing whatever. I couldn't understand it. I put the book away. I said, screw this. Why do I need this? I'm going to law school. Like 5, 6 years later, I'm like back into it. And I just hate myself for that time missed. But on that note, yeah, I mean, if you can manage your time to, I mean, what would you do if you weren't in school and you're doing like entrepreneuring or whatever you want to call it? Like, you're going to like just hang out? Like, you can't be busy all the time. You got to do other stuff, right?
That's also like the most important thing. I think that when you're an entrepreneur, your time management becomes to another level. Like that I don't have time is not an excuse anymore. I don't have time, that means I'm going to wake up 2 hours earlier, or I'm going to go to bed 2 hours later. Or
I'm going to go to bed right on time and not fuck around. Sorry.
yeah. There's no TikTok scrolling in bed right before you go to sleep. It's like I have to be in bed by 1 a.m. because I have to wake up at 4 a.m. and I need to have at least a little bit of sleep before I have this meeting with Australia. Yeah. So you're definitely always on your toes. You're always on your toes, and you're always finding ways to innovate, which I think is very, very important.
And I mean, and to that point, if you don't do that, you're going to know tomorrow. You're going to know why that was a bad idea the next day.
And also another point that you touched on, that like 20 is like a good point. I think that you should start at any age when you feel comfortable with yourself and how you're able to understand what you want to promote, because you don't necessarily want to do something unless you're sure about what you want to do.
Of course.
As soon as you have your goal, it's like, okay, this is my goal. This is how I'm going to achieve it. Like, I think the most important point is the starting and the end point. And then in between, you work those things out. It's like, oh, how do I do this? And every single step, you're like, oh, I'm getting closer. So it's like a little bit exciting.
It is definitely exciting. When I say start as early as possible, I mean like, find out what you're passionate about. My niece, ever since like she started like having interests in like more educational stuff, as soon as she got like the princess phase and everything, she used to love Frozen and Disney and all that. And as I started to get into tech, I was like, that's when I said I wish I did this earlier. So now I've been trying to push her. It's like, hey, learn some coding. And her dad's an electrical engineer, so he's all about that stuff. And so I think for one of her birthdays, she was bought this robot on wheels that, you can like program and stuff, right? So for one of her birthdays, she actually programmed a little thing and it kind of moved around and like, because it has a little camera and it can see and this is for like a child. It's just like 14 now, but when she was like younger. So it's just, find your passion. Like, I'm not saying quit your job and start going this thing to do whatever you're doing. Have a plan, of course, but if you like something, dig into it. Even if it's not tech, and some people, I can say this safely because, tech is lucrative. Probably want to be a little more hesitant if you want to be a painter or other stuff. I'm not ripping on it. I'm just saying, look at the numbers. It's not as lucrative. Still, hats off to you. I wish everyone their success. But yeah, like get into your passion at the end of the day.
I think that's like one of the things that I think is super true that you did mention, is that fact that like you do need to kind of do like a risk analysis about what your dream is and kind of figure that out. But I think that coming from a Jewish background, the risk analysis is kind of like a family decision. So it's not really like a personal thing. And I feel like in a Jewish family, your family never lets you get too happy. Like you could be the most successful doctor in the world. They'll find something that you did wrong and how like, oh, you didn't take your vitamins, or like how it's never enough, how you have to keep on going. And I think that that's one thing, how like they never settle. You're always underachieve. No matter what the goal is, you always underachieve. And I think that that's what builds the hustle to keep on going and keep on going. So to touch on that.
Picking back off that real quick, I think there was this joke I heard from, I'm just going to give a shout out to her name, Libby Walker. She does these funny TikToks. She had this joke where this Jewish lady becomes the first female president, and she's there at the inauguration, and her family's behind her. And her mom goes to one of the senators. You see that girl out there? Her son's a doctor. I'm sorry, I screwed up. Her brother's a doctor. So it's like, oh, my daughter becomes president, but hey, did you know though that her brother's a doctor? Like, that's impressive. How come you didn't become a doctor? Free world leader. What is this?
It's always like that. Like, no matter what, you always gotta there's always one up. And I really like that about the Jewish culture. because you always got to like keep going, you never stop, don't slow down. So I wanted to ask you, what are you most proud of?
Like in general, like of
And
what
proud of
specific?
like your like that you have achieved. What's the most thing that you're proud of?
I'm proud of. I'm proud. Yeah. So I'm proud I was actually able to make that transition from not only like getting out of law school into sales, but now kind of like giving myself the mixture between sales and tech. So when I was contemplating leaving my job a couple of months back, so my partner, he got a AWS certificate. If anyone doesn't know, AWS, Amazon Web Services, it's kind of like the huge cloud data service provider out there. So he got it. It was pretty easy for him. Or a lot easier for him. He went to NYU, computer science. He works at a big consulting company still too. So me not having that little background, I was like, okay, I got to do this. Like, if I'm actually serious about, committing myself to a different thing, then, I should try to get some certificate. And if he can get the certificate, then I can get the certificate. Again, may remind you, I'm bad at standardized tests, so it was extra difficult for me. And you got to pay $100 for it, which is, had a good job at the time, so it didn't matter. But you're kind of like putting money down, in order to. So if you don't do it, you got to do it again. Another $100 all of a sudden. It's not 100, it's 200, right? So I did it. I took the test. I passed, and I said, first thing I did.
You passed first try?
I passed first try. Yeah, exactly. The first thing I did is, I'm not usually a poster on LinkedIn. That's why some of the information here might be a little oof. But that's the first time I posted something on LinkedIn, probably like in years. And I said, hey, I did this. I'm a certified little techie. Amazon said so. So that was, as soon as I got that, I said, all right, cool. Maybe I do have some legs to stand on in the tech world, not just sales. So I was happy about that.
You did mention about how you had to spend $100 to take the test, and that kind of sounds like a risk. What's the most expensive risk you guys had to take in your journey?
So I mean, really none so far. The beautiful thing about consulting is we took the first $1,000 from our first client. It was small, but it was like the first thing. It took us like a week or two to do, and we made an LLC out of it, and then we've been keeping our costs down. Now we're getting like a good amount of money, and like, should I pay for a URL? Should I pay for some company emails? I'm like, I don't really need to right now. So, because I don't know, I'm Jewish, maybe I'm a little cheap. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I don't know. But everything right now has essentially been bootstrapped. Just reinvest everything back into the company. But I think the biggest really is just quitting my job. Like, I left, I was an account executive, right? So I was closing deals, making 10% off that every time, sometimes 15%. So I was making easily like 100, 200,000 at a rate every month of $100 to $200,000. And I left that, and now for right now it's a lot less. But the goal is in the future, hopefully by the end of next year, to make even more than that amount of money. So right now, that is the biggest type of risk the financial risk that I think I've taken as of recently.
I think that it's very interesting how you said that you took a job even though you knew you were going to get paid. And I think that I strongly agree with that whole point, because I read a quote now that I started reading a lot. And it was like, the only way to not work 40 hours a week is to work 60 hours a week. And that's kind of like the way that you're saying it, where it's like, okay, like, I know that I don't want to do this. I have this crazy goal. Yes, I'm going to get paid less, but eventually I'll get paid way more than that. Yeah. So it's like thinking long, like multiple steps ahead. You're kind of playing chess. You're tired of playing checkers. And that's the fun of it, of being an entrepreneur. And being an entrepreneur.
I want to say, if you don't mind, I don't want to be too much glamorized about one quitting a job. I put a lot of time and effort into thinking about this, right? So I ran my finances out for the next year. I budgeted for like every conceivable expense. I said, this is how much cash I'm going to have hand. This is how much I may have to liquidate out of like investment assets. So I have best, okay, and worst case situations. I put projections on, right? I calculate how much money I might be making. Again, best. I can show you the Excel sheet or Google sheet. I hate Excel. You can quote me on that. So it's not like, a lot of people say it's like, yeah, I could drop out of college and start my own company. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard. He got into Harvard. Okay, people don't realize, but he got into Harvard, right? So like, there's a little thing there. So I just want to know, it's not everybody should like drop out of X, Y, and Z or quit X, Y, and Z. Have a plan. Otherwise, people are like, well, he did it. And also, like, it still remains to see. In a year from now, if we talk, I may fall flat on my face. You also have to be open to that you could be wrong in what you're doing. And I think that you always kind of like have to have a little bit, not like bring it down, but always like say, hey, in the real world, things happen. Not everything goes according to how you think, how you plan. So I just want to like make that little thing out there. It's like, it's not for everybody, and B, those that do it have thought really hard about it. As you said, you thought hard about it, and you're like, I'll just stay in school. It's fine. I'll stay in school. It's okay right now.
Yeah, and it's also like, there's no need for me to make such a rash change, because I was like, there's no need for me to wake up at 8 a.m. I could wake up at 6 a.m. and have everything done. Like, I'm perfectly okay. Like, there's no need for me to go out. I'm okay with not going out just so I could focus on work. And I think that it's super, like, motivational to see that there are other people out in the world that are like, hey, I have this job, I have good insurance. I know I'm about to be that age where like my parents' insurance coverage doesn't cover me, because at the end of the day, that is very important. Like the dental, the medical, it's like, oh, like that. So you start thinking, it's like, is it really worth it? And I think that it's really like very courageous of you that you like put your foot down and you just like kept going. I wanted to ask you, where do you see your company going in the future within the next like 10 years?
So I hope 10 years. I'm trying to focus on the next 1 year. 10 years, I don't know, 10 years.
Like the dream. So now you're already watching this. You're watching this podcast in the future. It's 2032. You're watching this, and then you're like, oh my God. Yeah. You're 35. You're like, where's the company? Where's the company at?
35. Where's the company? I hope the company is at a place where it's doing good things for like everybody, as many people as possible. And it's running like that without the founders needing to be as hands-on if they don't want to be, like programmers like, okay, this is why I designed this weird thing to do to benefit people in many different ways. And then the founders can go off and work on something else that would be pretty cool, or use it as a method of doing like other side projects and stuff. I don't expect myself to, I feel like if something gets too big, it probably won't be for me as much. So that's why I say that, because I like the ground level innovating. I feel like at some point things become too like factory produced. I don't like just like
cookie cutter. Like the cookie cutters. It becomes like
exactly. There's a term for it. I can't think of it. But yeah, when things get too big, it's like, okay, we're going to do this. Follow this process. When you're small, you can get away with doing stupid stuff and trying, and it's okay. So yeah, that's where I hope.
I was hoping that you would say like within the next 10 years, you're going to have that custom URL, the crazy paths to go on domain.com. People are going to find
that's going to come. It'll come.
They're going to find your whole company. They're going to buy the domain after they hear this. So you may want to go buy the domain before somebody tries to sell you your domain that they
can't buy. No, they can't buy rhanalytics.com because someone already bought it. So
so that's not really good. That's like the whole thing. When you are starting a company, like when we were starting Team DFI, we were looking for like names, and at first we just wanted to be DFI, like do first innovation. And I was like, okay, do first innovation is taken. It's like so it was like DFI, it's like something else. And I was like, okay, what could we do? And then I started thinking, I was like, I'm trying to like incorporate the startups that we're working with, and we're all a team. So I was like, why don't we do like Team DFI? And that wasn't taken. So now I was like, I'm not taking the chance. I'm like, this is all we need is that custom URL kind of, because I'm reaching out to a bunch of startups. I have to look professional. So that's like the whole thing where it's like, you have to like act as a certain like character when you are talking to certain startups, because you cannot, or certain people, because you need to have like a leg to stand on. And that's like the thing that I realized is really important.
Yeah, I think the thing with me is about me. I don't, yeah, I'm not a big corporate. I hope you can tell, I'm not a big corporate jargon guy. So like, I don't even like to think of myself as an entrepreneur. I just think I'm a co-founder of a thing. We're doing stuff, and it's going to be cool, awesome, and fun. My partner is more of the more. I mean, it's not that I'm not professional, but he's like more like suit and tie type guy. And so we really meet in the middle there. And in terms of that, so like in terms of marketing, again, getting the name out there, I like to think we're going to be focusing more on the word of mouth for now. And I mean, yeah, actually, you're right. It doesn't hurt to spend like $50 or so to secure a domain, so you don't have any headaches banging yourself against the wall. I guess you're right.
And it's for 2 years. You get your domain for 2 years. So, see.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's not that we don't have $50 to spend. Thank God we do. But like, that's why like he needs to be more the guy to like say, hey, Derek, be more. This is like more professional. Because the way I see it is like we can probably ride high, making a lot of money just through connections. And then I can maybe hire a marketing guy. I'm like, all right, do this, and I'll give like 10% of whoever comes your way.
That makes sense. You spoke about a little bit about how like you're co-founder. But when you're starting a company, you need people around you that have similar vision, and you guys have to gel together because this is the founding group where everybody's the lawyer, the accountant, like you guys are every single position, the janitor, the chef, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Everybody's taking part of everything. And that's kind of how we are at Team DFI, or I hope we are at Team DFI. What qualities were you looking for when you were looking for a co-founder?
So, well, I think, well, let's start first with the foundation. At the beginning of it all, if you're going to have a co-founder, which you should. So so an individual person brings A, B, and C to the table. Okay. Sometimes you need C, D, and E. Okay, where that one person only has A, B, and C, right? I'm saying A, B, C, quality traits, whatever. So the co-founder has to be the person that maybe they share with you on different things, or at least they share with you in terms of being able to work with you, but they have the other attributes you don't have. And, there's many co-founders that you have in order to fill those roles. So in me, I have A, B, and C. Ben, I'd say, has C, D, E, and F, right? Or C, D, whatever. So that's just the general idea of why one would have a co-founder. Sometimes like, hey, great, let's get a group of friends together and just like create something. One may have to think rationally about it. It's like, hey, could this destroy a friend group? I'm sure there's so many things out there. And a company could be like worth, or like an idea could be worth nothing, and people like still like infighting. It's like incredibly stupid. All of a sudden people's egos get in the way and stuff. But yeah, so if you're thinking about getting something together, company or little gig, whatever the case is, just think about, if you're the guy who's like leading the charge, think about, okay, what do I have and what do I not know how to do? And a lot of people also, I guess, I don't think a lot of people, I think also when you're younger, you're not very honest with yourself about what you can't do. You think you can do anything. As I got older, I definitely became more humble in that. So you realize, okay, I'm flawed here. I'm flawed in D and E, and I need to find someone to do that. Thankfully, I'd like to think that me and my partner, we've known each other since childhood, and it just so happened that we were kind of like going parallel together in what our desires are, what our dreams are, what we want to do. So we were able to like fall in together. I'm sure some people that have to do more active looking. So I definitely going to say I got lucky. But yeah, if you want to think about co-founder, what you're looking for something about who complements my flaws, who can understand me, and who can I help understand them, or something like that.
Yeah, you mentioned about how like friendships could act into somebody that you have as a co-founder. I think that friendships are one thing that you should consider as like investors, but not necessarily as co-founders, because there are certain quality traits where you want to stick away from the business and the professional aspects and kind of like be like, where it's like, this is business, this is like my fun time. Like, you don't always want your coworker, like you and your coworkers don't have to be best friends. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So like for me, it was like when I was starting Team DFI, I didn't necessarily pick my best friends. I picked the people that I knew that I could trust and work with them. Big shout out to Levy. and Lucas for helping me run the show, especially in the beginning. Yeah, but like it's like the whole thing, and I feel like as being starting something, you guys all have to be working together. And if one person is doing all the heavy lifting, then his back hurts at a certain point, and then it's like, oh my god, like it's like the other people they got to start doing their work. And I think that that's one of the important things, how like you are able to share the responsibilities, because you're gonna burn out if you think that you could do everything. It doesn't matter how much time management skills you have or how great of a person you think you have. It's beyond like one of those like crazy things to be like, I could do this myself. I tried doing Team DFI by myself, and let me tell you, it was awful. I cannot explain to you how thankful I am to the boys that are helping me with the with the project, and we're having a great time.
And the future girls, right? We're all inclusive, and the future girls.
Yeah, the future, yeah. And if you're interested in becoming part of the Team DFI brand, make sure to reach out to us. We're always looking for people, so make sure to apply. We'll see what we could do there. I wanted to ask you about like being a founder, a fellow founder myself. There's always like a hardship, and something that there's always peaks, valleys. Can you talk about like a really low point and how you got out of
it? With the founder, or just in general life and everything? Just with the founder.
You can talk about general life. I would think that like usually like right when you start like becoming a founder and you see like when you check your bank account and all you see is red, that's like kind of like I would say is like oh wow, that's not really the best thing. But then like eventually like I could talk about from my personal experience. Like when I first started Team DFI, I knew that I wasn't doing it to make money. I wanted to do it to educate people and ultimately find startups that I'm passionate about and help them to succeed, because that's what I'm passionate about. I want to make other people prosper, and ultimately in the process like develop a friendship with them where they're like, oh, this guy knows this guy, why don't I reach out to him? Like maybe they could do a connection. And the more connections I do, then I kind of become invaluable, because every single person wants me to introduce them to somebody else. And then I'm able to, like I am the company, and I'm able to help every single person prosper around me. It's not fun to be the only one that wins in a trade. That's supposed that's why there's like you win and you lose. But like I think that you should only be winning on both sides. If it's not a win-win, then it's a bad situation.
Yeah, exactly. If it's not win-win. Yeah, and it's good that you say, you're not doing it for the money. So that means the red lines in the bank account shouldn't bother you, right? If you're not doing it for the money.
No, the red lines did not bother me. I'm not gonna lie. The red lines did not really bother me too much, because I mentally prepared myself to see those red lines, and I did calculate all that when I was going into it. So I was like, okay, this is relatively low risk. Like, how much money would I be spending to go out with VCs, to get like coffee, with founders, all these things? And I calculated, and I was like, wow, I'm actually saving money starting my own company. That's so ridiculous that I didn't just start my own company like prior. So this was like, for me, I was like, wow, I'm actually doing the right thing here, because I would be spending more money. I'm saving. The Jewish mindset.
It should be it should be everyone's mindset. How can we just do better for ourselves and really do better for the future, right? That's how I see it. That's what I don't think I've experienced any like low point yet. Probably will. Maybe a client won't read. It's definitely been a few close calls, because contract renewing. But I'm really trying to get like a annual contract in the next couple of months. Then I know we're going to be set. But if that goes through, then I'll probably be like, well, damn, okay, what next? But no, as I said, I did everything you did. I planned to lose this amount of money. I literally budgeted my entire year. I know all the reasonable expenses that are going to occur. It's all about, I guess, as you said, just knowing what to expect, and then you won't be surprised and you won't let it take you down. If things get a little worse, like, all right, am I going to expect anything to go completely perfect? I'm not saying that if something really, really bad happens, you shouldn't be like, oh crap, okay, hold on, let's manage some stuff. Maybe a big challenge, maybe not financially speaking, is like, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversations, like I'm responsible for all the little stuff and I cannot procrastinate it. So if I think about something that needs to be done, kind of like playing chess, if I know that I need to be in this position, I should probably do this now. Even though it doesn't seem like a big thing right now, I will wish I'll have done it a couple months ago. So I should probably get to it right now. That's I think the big thing. I can't procrastinate anymore as much as I'm sure we all would like to procrastinate a little bit.
You spoke a bit about how like you have to have this huge time crunch, and being an entrepreneur is definitely time draining. How has that affected your personal relationships?
So, all right, I'm not. So Elon Musk, I know he works like 80 to like 160 hours a week or something. I am knowledgeable. I understand myself enough to know I can't do that. I understand myself to know that as much as I think of myself as a little bit introverted, I can get pretty introverted where I'm like all held up, and I could do just hours and hours and hours and hours of work on end and not see anyone. It's not healthy. And the people, and to anyone that thinks, because originally I had that mindset, and I lost track of a lot of friends doing that. It's like, no, you got to be grinding all the way. It's good to grind, but if you're not interacting with people, it's going to affect you, and then you're not going to be happy enough to do the work later. So it's a little weird, but you have to take care of yourself in order to focus on your mission, that is hopefully to take care of others, right? There's like I go to the gym, I try to eat healthy. It's to make sure I am good to continue that mindset to, work towards whatever the goal is for other people, right? If that makes sense. So in terms of how it's affecting my relationship right now, there are some times where I can't go to an event, which is fine, because I'm also in grad school, as I mentioned too, and that takes up Mondays and Tuesdays. A lot of stuff I would like to do with friends Mondays and Tuesdays, but it's fine. I have Wednesdays, Thursdays. Essentially, if you look at my calendar, I'll have a couple hours booked out every single day as an opportunity to go see someone, go hang out with someone. What you won't see me probably do is I'll probably just be too socially exhausted. Again, that's just me. I probably won't go to event A with a group of friends, event B with a group of friends, and event C with a group of friends all on the same day. Probably like one thing and that's it. Okay, I'm going to go back. I need to do work, et cetera, et cetera. It all goes back to time management and being realistic. If you're a social person and you're not the person to spend 80, 60 hours a week like Elon Musk does, don't do it. Don't kid yourself. You're just going to hurt. You're just going to shoot yourself in the foot, really. Don't be someone you're not. Be honest with you are.
Underlining messages, no matter how much you're working, sleep is important. You cannot get your job done if you do not sleep, and rest is important. Don't overwork yourself, because I know when I first started, I could not sleep because all I would do is I would go to bed at like 10. I would close my eyes, lay there for about like 5 minutes, and I was like, all right, I cannot sleep. Grab the notebook, grab the computer, filled out like 30 pages. Next thing you know, I'm looking at the clock, 5 a.m. I'm like, oh God, I have meetings at 8. I'm like, okay, I'm going to sleep for 3 hours. And then I would do that over and over again. And then I had to take those Motrins because the head was hurting. I lost a good amount of weight. That's the good thing about being a founder, the weight loss that comes with it. So you guys, the weight loss definitely comes with it, because you're not eating. If you're working so much, you're not. It's a good workout plan. Like, and all you do is talk all day. It's a good workout plan. Definitely high energy.
100%. On that note of being honest, I mean, you seem like someone that can't get up early. I'm like, well, I cannot. I have to. I tried doing that. I tried to get up at like 6 a.m. It worked well for a little bit until I realized like I can't do this. Sometimes when, as you said, when my head hits at 10 p.m., it just doesn't work. So instead, I try to manipulate my schedule where I don't really start working until like 10, 11. Work for a couple hours, go to gym, come back, do more work. Then I do whatever my social thing is, then come and work through the night till like 11, 12, 1, 2 even. And I plan to get 6, 7 hours of sleep and then just wake up at whatever hour and again, just do it all over again, 10, 11. I'm not one of those people. And again, it's one of the things about not kidding yourself. I probably will never be able to work to get up at work for 6 a.m. Religiously like that. But that doesn't mean you have to, I feel, and that doesn't mean you won't be productive. That just means that you have a different work schedule and you can find ways around it. And occasionally, you may come across someone where 6 a.m. is a thing. You will have to do it. But if you don't have to, and you could adhere to your own schedule and be as productive, that's fine. I think there's a big stigma of, okay, and this ties back to the relationship thing. I have to be in my room all day, all night. I have to be up at 6 a.m. I have to get 5 hours of sleep. I just had to drink protein or energy drinks. And no, stop. What are you doing to yourself? You're not helping anybody. You're not helping you.
I'm not gonna lie, working with being like a client-facing role where I'm not really all day typing, or I'm mainly spending my day chatting with startups. So that does help. Yes, it does get exhausting, but I wake up every single day, I read, I go to the gym, and then only I start working. But the difference is like, because I wake up so early and get all this stuff done. So when I start working, it's already like 9 a.m. So that's one thing that is very beneficial with like the way that I'm working, and I love it. But the thing is, it's like you have to set time for those that you care about, because those people, they understand you're putting in work and they're going to be by you, but you cannot neglect them.
Yep. And you get to a point where you're being selfish, right? If you're not giving back to the people around you, you can say, but yeah, I'm doing this for, and I had this moment for the site I was trying to build. It's like, yeah, but I'm doing this for other people. It's like, yeah, but you're kind of neglecting the most important people around you. So
it does make sense. Thank you so much, Derek, for being on the podcast. Do you have anything that you want to say to the audience, where they could find you? Anything that you want to promote? RH Analytics, possible future URL, possible.
If I'm not gonna do that. If you want, feel free to email me, rhnalyticsllc@gmail.com. Find me on LinkedIn. You can probably find me on Twitter, just my name, Derek Howard. Instagram, I don't usually focus on those. Again, one day I'll probably hire someone to do it, so because I'm just not that much of that type of person, but whatever.